Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our finale coverage of The Summit. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today, it's Chappell. How you doing, Chappell?
Taran, I'm so good, especially since I just finished watching you and Manu Bennett talk about the summit and him complimenting you on your impression of him. I was not expecting that at all. He came in ready to talk about it. So yeah, I think we got some summit fans here, and we might even have a new fan of this podcast. Shout out to Manu Bennett. I know you're listening, buddy. I'm sorry I couldn't be there.
I know he opened right up with my summit impression feedback. You know what? He was kinder about it than I am to myself. I think that I've got a lot to work on.
No, listen. He knows who he is. He knows that he is the strong voice, if nothing else. And he like it was fun watching you kind of make fun of him, and with your impression, because he has to know that that's him. Manu, you're a terrifying man. We love you to death, but you're terrifying. Taran talked about racing you to the top of the mountain, and I would just be afraid that you would throw me off of it. So, the impression you have is perfectly fine. It hits the mark. You know that this is a scary human. But by the end of the season, he looked like a proud dad, Taran. He was just like grinning from ear to ear. He was beaming. And so I loved hearing y'all talk. And of course, shout out to your impression because you do it way better than I could.
And for the record, it's not making fun of him. I love the Manu Bennett voice.
Yes.
I wish I had the Manu Bennett voice. Let me tell you.
He's got a scary
But
one. Like that's a
yes,
voice you got to
if
keep
you don't know
locked
what we're
up.
talking about, not only has the finale now aired, we know the winner of the summit.
Winners.
But I also spoke to Manu Bennett yesterday. I think it's yesterday, yeah. And had a great time. He had tons of stories. He was upset that Chappelle wasn't there.
Yeah, it's traveling, Terry, and I couldn't make it. And I felt so bad because I was like, man, this is my only chance. But then I was thinking, okay, Manu's not gonna miss me. But he did sound like he missed me. So I was like, all right. It felt like I was watching a video of my two best friends hanging out without me. I ain't like it. So next time I will be there, Manu. Thank you.
Yeah. And apparently they've been listening to the podcast. And when he said he told the producer about the podcast, and he was like, "Why don't they make their own show?" But then was like, "Actually, there's some good ideas." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Well, I appreciated that. It's like, yes, making a show is hard. We're just here to let you know that we are enjoying the show, but we would like it a little bit more if there's a little bit extra. This is season one. We've talked about it. Manu mentioned it, but season one could be the rough draft for something that will later on be a masterpiece. And so, although we have been critical of the show in a lot of ways, I think that both of us enjoyed the time watching it and have really enjoyed kind of punching it up to hope for maybe a potential season 2 or season 3. We don't know how far this is going to go. So yeah, take what we said. It's all in fun and kindness. It really is. It's with love, but then also tweak it and make it better. Because I thought, Taran, in the finale, I felt like they were trying to give us a little bit of what we've been begging for. There were breadcrumbs of what we've been asking for. I think they're taking note, regardless of how they feel about it.
Yeah, and talking to Manu, based on what he said, and this is, I think, me trying to interpret it, and not necessarily entirely what he said, but like this is a show, and we've mentioned this before. It's based on an original format, I think, in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was sort of like bought and repackaged to the US. And sort of like my interpretation of what I was hearing was that like they were just kind of following the format. And maybe the
Mm-hmm.
format worked in Australia. Maybe it worked for that version of the show. But I think it makes sense to me that like they were following the recipe,
Mm-hmm.
but for this particular season of this show in the US, with and I don't know what the runtime is in Australia. They often have longer episodes, but like if it was maybe a shorter runtime there, if it was maybe like a slightly differently focused show, if it was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh well, let's inject a little bit more strategy into this, I'm starting to understand maybe why it felt like it sometimes had trouble like finding what it was, because it was still this interpretation of a different show. And from what I'm hearing from Manu is that like I think they feel a lot more comfortable if they do come back for a season 2 to be like, okay, this is the show we want to make. And I do think there's potential here. I mean, Bo died to show us that.
Yeah, and then came back from the grave to scold everybody from killing him. You know, like I think that Bo's death, and then more recently, you know, Jeannie's death as well. I think those are big high points for me in watching the show. And you're right. These US shows that we have, we're so used to them being cutthroat and people voting out their mom and, you know, like saying scathing remarks to people as they snatch money out of their hands. We've seen it all across the board on these US reality shows. And you pointed out that a lot of times international shows that outside of the United States, obviously, are a lot more polite in a lot of ways. Sometimes, you know, like Big Brother, for instance, but even like, you know, Australian Survivor. But I mean, they're like even shows like The Great British Baking Show. It's so wholesome that there's no way it would thrive here. But it's so wholesome that people go and watch it because they're like, I just need a nice wholesome show. Here we're like, no. We need Gordon Ramsay yelling at you, calling you an idiot sandwich, you know, in order for the show to be good. So we just need a little bit more spice. We followed that format. It led us to some promising results. Now let's continue to evolve and make this thing a bigger, better show. And I will be here to follow it if it does. I've thoroughly enjoyed the journey, but the finale really reminded me of the high points of why I really enjoyed the moments that I did like.
I thought it was a fun finale. I think you know, we opened up with everyone really saying like, man, I trust Nick.
Yeah.
I was like, I think Nick murdered Becky Lee and took her skin and is now in this is what we've been seeing with the Becky Lee edit for the entire season. Now all of a sudden Nick is there, and it's like, how did this happen? Very, very slick stuff from Nick. I think overall, I'm very impressed with his game. But I love that it so quickly comes to, and this maybe could have been more dramatic, but I think that they have to leave somebody behind, right?
Yeah.
And they choose somebody to go over, and when they say go over with the money, it's like,
yeah, you know what's coming.
Nick actually. So I thought this was interesting. Pumpkin really wants to go, and Nick is kind of like, well, this feels like it could be a thing, but if I try to like fight for this right now, you know, who knows? He probably can be the first one over. But he might lose the trust of Pumpkin in the meantime. And if this is not an elimination challenge, then now you don't want to get into a spot where all of a sudden it becomes like a 2-2. You've just got Jeannie on your side. Like, he's got Pumpkin here. You know, he had Taran kind of throwing his life on the line for him in the previous vote. So don't rock the boat, and Pumpkin is probably not going to run off with the money, even though that was the result that I was hoping for in the finale.
Yeah, I really thought they were going to like, all right, Pumpkin, these 3 people have betrayed you left and right. Here's your chance. Do you want to climb the summit by yourself? Like, you can do this on your own right now. Test the wheels. May the best, you know, like, can you do it or not?
Like you can call over as many people as you want. You can basically you can call somebody over and then they can call somebody over, or you can decide to not call anybody over and the rest. But you have to call them first and let them know your decision.
Call. You have to make the phone call. Yeah. I was very impressed with Pumpkin because she knew that she could not leave this up to chance, right? Like she went out on a limb last week with Becky Lee's elimination because she like, look, Becky Lee was moving sketch. I'm gonna go with Nick. I trust Nick, but not this much. You know, I know that Nick and Jeannie have been working together. I know that Nick and Taran have been working together. Me and Nick, we just connected. We really started to mesh on the Becky thing. I gotta be the one to go over. I was impressed with her, and I was impressed with my girl Jeannie. Because Jeannie was like, no, I really think it should be Nick. Like, I really think it should be Nick. Nick said, I don't want to push too much, but Jeannie was like, no, Nick, are you sure you don't want to do this? Because Jeannie could tell if something's going down, Pumpkin is not going to pick Jeannie. They don't have any type of relationship that we've seen. And she wasn't wrong. She got over there to the other side by helicopter, hanging. I forgot what they call it, but yeah, just hanging from a helicopter all the way across the traverse. And when she gets there, of course, we get the twist that there is a note and there is a decision to be made. And I was thinking, man, what's the spiciest outcome we can get right here? Like, if Pumpkin has to choose somebody, I was like, what if she just picked Jeannie and made Jeannie choose between Nick and Taran? I was going through all
That'd
the
be an
options
easy
in my
choice
head.
to
Like,
make, yeah.
who knew that Nick had everybody in just like this stranglehold? Once he got Becky Lee out of the way, dear God, make Taran choose. Like that.
I mean, I think Theron chooses Nick there. I think that Jeannie gets left behind in every scenario. Even if Nick goes over first, I think Nick chooses either Theron or Pumpkin, and then they choose each other. I think that Jeannie is always getting left behind there, and it's mostly because her closest person is Nick, and she's just too loyal to Nick. He doesn't need to do anything to reciprocate or to like make sure that she still trusts him because she's so locked in with him. And so what was interesting to me is that Pumpkin chooses Nick. Like, I thought this was like editing bluster, that like, oh, like they're saying they trust Nick, but surely Pumpkin and Theron are like locked in. Like, they must be the duo left because they've talked about like liking each other, and Pumpkin has been going after Nick for like days, and he's been going after her for days. Like, surely they haven't like reconnect. And Becky Lee was pretty convincing because she was telling the truth that she was not going after Pumpkin. Surely Nick is not all of a sudden Pumpkin's number one, and yet she picks him first, allowing him to choose between Theron and Jeannie. And in a world where this is not the last elimination, he should be picking Jeannie to stay and not Theron, leaving Pumpkin as the final elimination when he and Jeannie go to the final two together.
Yeah, this is an interesting decision from Pumpkin. It really was, because I really didn't think that she would go this route, and I started to question the relationship between Pumpkin and Theron. Throughout the season, they've been saying that they wanted to work together, but the same criticism she had for Becky Lee, she can have for Theron too. He's lied to her. He voted out Jeff. He voted out Dusty. These were all moves that Pumpkin was not on board for. So if she's looking at Becky Lee like, I can't trust you, she should be looking at Theron the same way. It's kind of like Nick is the enemy that she knows. It's like, no, I know Nick has effed me over. At least he has kept a promise to me. I'm not even quite sure that Theron and Becky Lee had ever done anything to, like, except for tell us how much they like Pumpkin. Have they ever really looked out for Pumpkin? Like, they voted out all her friends.
Well,
and so
Becky Lee got voted out trying to look out for Pumpkin, but other than that,
yeah. But look, Becky Lee, you did that to yourself. You didn't have to vote out all of Pumpkin's friends. You didn't have to do that, or you could have at least let her in on the blind sides. But you blindside this lady throughout the entire season, and you're like, why did you trust me? Like, well, I mean, look at the material. At least Nick was to my face talking about it.
It was so funny because like all season long we were like, why do these people trust Becky Lee? She keeps screwing them over. And then it was like, oh, I guess they didn't. I don't know.
Oh, well, we got to talk about Becky Lee a little bit later on in this recap for sure, because I got some questions for Becky Lee.
Okay, so
this is great. I love this.
So Nick has to choose between Jeannie and Theron. And like I said, I feel like strategically the choice here is very clearly you pick Jeannie to come over. Because if there is another elimination, she's locked in with you. You've just guaranteed yourself the win. Unless you fear that, like, because I don't know how much they know. I don't know if they know this is the final elimination. I don't know if they know there's a vote coming. They certainly didn't seem to, but they were worried about votes like throughout. They were like, this person too likable. So maybe he thought that Jeannie was too likable to bring to the end, which might be true. So I don't really know what went into this decision strategically, or if it was just purely based on, I do genuinely just owe Theron for betraying Becky Lee for me. So I need to call him over.
I think he's being transparent. I think he's telling the truth. Like, hey, Taran went out on the limb for me last episode, got out Becky Lee with me, and I owe him. The problem with that is that if I'm Jeannie, I'm like, what the hell? You know, like with Becky Lee came to me begging me. Reese saw that. Becky Lee and Jeannie have almost no relationship. Becky Lee's coming to Jeannie, please, please, girl, save me. I mean, this is all I can do. Like, this is it. And Jeannie's like, oh, okay, yeah, I hear you out, but she never wavered. And so it's like, you're about to go and reward Taran for not betraying you when there was no world where I would have ever betrayed you. It was not even an option for me. It didn't even come up. You have to convince Taran not to betray you. He has other options. You're all I have. So yeah, it's a curious decision because even if his logic is just it was an emotional thing that I did to pay back Taran, it's kind of like, okay, am I just dead to you? But
it's
I guess
very much like a take a person for granted kind of thing. Like Jeannie was like his person.
Yeah, like it was. She was kind of his mark. Like I could, you know what? Jeannie was kind of his pumpkin. You know, like where throughout the season I can betray you as many times I want, and you still gonna work with me, kind of in a way. Like I still got you, and it's tough to say that because, you know, I was thinking, okay, when they get off this helicopter, my girl Jeannie gonna have the last laugh here. She gonna come out and let them know, all right, Nick, you left me for dead. I ain't gonna forget. And I ain't quite get what I wanted, Taran. I'm just saying, the show is right there, Taran. We were right here at some greatness. There were moments where I was like, okay, Summit, let's do it. But not quite yet.
Not quite. So they Nick has to choose, and like I said, this could have been more dramatic. This could have been, you know, falling from a height, or being buried in snow, or being pushed off of a cliff, or being like pulled away via helicopter.
Yes, Taran, that's what I want to stick on. Okay, so the challenge was you have to hold on to the helicopter as we drag you across and out into the snow. Fine. What if the last person just gets dragged in the opposite direction? Like, they get on the helicopter, and they're like, as they're holding on, they're like, I have one last thing to tell you. You're not coming with us. And it's just like
Chappell. How about this? The hell, Jeannie's worried. We'll talk about that in a second. She's worried it's not coming back. The helicopter does come back. She's like, okay, I was worried, but the helicopter did come back. She gets on the helicopter. It's going in the right direction. Okay. Okay. I think I'm okay. I think I'm fine. And then she hears, I guess in her headset, because it's pretty loud on a helicopter. Yeah. She hears Nick's voice. Nick? Jeannie, I'm sorry. She looks up, and it's Nick with a saw, and he's cutting the
road. It could have been more dramatic. I really think that there is a sweet spot in this, like between this and the bow thing, right? Like, yeah, every time we're not going to be able to drop somebody off the side of the mountain, but you should really lean into the idea that, yeah, this is a show about you climbing a mountain in the wilderness as if there are not people around watching you, right? So y'all strategic decisions. The only person you got to answer to is the mountain keeper and Manu. So let's get a little loosey-goosey, you know? If Jeannie can't get on the helicopter, then I want it to be more dramatic. I want them, like, the helicopter to come back, but there's no rope, or the rope is too short. She's jumping up. I can't get it. And Nick's just on the radio like, Jeannie, I know. I'm sorry. like Jeannie, it's too late. And she's still jumping. No, Nick, I think I can do it. Jeannie, you can't do it. You can't do it. I'm sorry. You know, I want something. I liked it, though. I was very happy that they finally gave us, because this counts as a death. You know, this, Dusty, and Bo for sure count as like murders. But if you're gonna murder them, you gotta kill them, because Bo got the most memorable exit, and it was in episode 2.
Mm-hmm. What I did like, I think Jeannie really made this work better than it might have, because she knew. Because when Nick calls Taran over, she's like, Taran, why is he crying? Theron is, am I going to be left behind? He was crying, and Theron is like, "What? I'm sure it's going to be fine. Don't chill.
Hold
Just
I'll tell you when I get over there.
I promise."
Yeah. Wait. She's crying because she knows. She's like, damn, I think I messed up. Oh God. But she was so tapped in. That's why I love Jeannie. I've liked her since very early on because she's like, I'm gonna be the strong mom. I'm gonna do this. Cool. I love that for her. But I also love that she wanted Nick to go first because she just knew if Nick goes first, I have a better chance of making it across. Now, the fact that is not even guaranteed is crazy to me. Like the fact that she had the right idea and that the outcome was probably still going to end up with her on the other side is insane. But she thought about it. She heard this voice, so she was tapped into like, no, what's happening? What's going on? Why am I last? And I said, okay, I like it, but when she calls over there and they're like, all right, Jeannie, I'm sorry, it had to be you. She's like, yeah, but who was it? Who said it specifically? Who made the call? I was like, yes, Jeannie, take him down.
Nick was like, I don't want her to know it was me.
Yeah, Theron's like, it was definitely Nick. It was Nick. It was Nick. But she's like, I want Nick to say it to me. I said, yes, Jeannie, scorch the earth. Again, just almost, yeah, just damn. It's tough because I was getting so excited. I was getting pumped for like a little bit of drama in my finale.
Well, the three of them make it. Nick, Pumpkin, and Theron. They are the final three. They make it to the summit, and they are greeted with the ghosts of their past, who will decide how much money they make. But they all make a decent amount of money.
Okay, so how do you feel about this? Because I agree with Manu. He said, if you make it to the top of this mountain, you deserve something. Fine. Because I could never, right? I'm not doing it. It's not me. I'm not doing any of these challenges. I'm not going out there. It's cold. I'm not doing it. So the fact that these people went on the show and like I made it to the top, give them something. They gave them $250,000 each. Okay, each $250,000 each just for making it. Cool. All right, then they say, now we're going to bring in the drama. And the drama is there's another $250,000 because you've been voting people out. And we talked about this. We weren't okay with them just being like, hey, you got to lose their money. So here it is. It's back. But you got to vote. Well, the jury has to vote for who they want to have this extra $250K. And to me, I'm like, it kind of softens the blow too much. A
little bit.
Just a little bit. We're used to like Survivor. It's all the stakes are $1 million, right? It's $1 million. You vote for me or you vote for them. But one of us is leaving here with $1 million and one of us is not, and that's okay. Don't get me wrong. There's second place prize money and all that kind of stuff in all these shows that we watch too. But I think back to this one season of the challenge, this woman named Ashley, they call her Ashley Millionaire. She just like stole the money from this other guy. Like she had been working with him the whole entire time and they gave her the option. Like you can split this with your partner or you can keep it yourself. And she was like, he can go to hell. I'm keeping this money myself. That's what American reality TV shows are made of. Like moments like that. So had you told me the person who wins the jury vote gets to decide if everybody gets to get the $250,000, I'm like, all right, now we got some action. That probably wouldn't have been as dramatic either, but it still would have been a little bit spicier than what we got.
Yeah, I mean, I think this still worked for me. We still had a jury vote of some sort, and I'm happy with the winner. But yeah, I was initially a little disappointed, but what I will say is, kudos to the show. Mm-hmm. We thought they were stealing money. They were not. They did intend to give away their $1 million. That they were not stealing Bo's money.
Right.
They were collecting it off of his corpse to give to him to give back to them as a ghost.
They had to go and like dig it out of like the quarry he fell into. They're like, all right, somebody go get the money. Same thing with Jeannie. I think her money was collected as well. Tony's money was collected, and Dusty's money is collected as well. So
and really, I would even say like, I don't even know that they needed to give Tony's money away. That one was fair. We
said if you quit, hey, the money's gone. You know what I'm saying? That's why you vote these people out so they can't quit and take the money with them. So
it would have been weird though to be like, And now you get the 200 or 182,000. Like,
Well, I didn't check the math on the split, Taran. I just assumed they were like, just giving them a round number of 250. Because I'd highly doubt. I mean, did the math add up to where it equaled up exactly to $1 million? Like, I just kind of assumed it did and went with it. I was like, whatever.
yeah, I mean, I assumed that they either like I assumed that they intentionally did eliminations at sections where it would add up to exactly 250 so that they could give
Yeah,
the extra 250 to the winner.
I didn't check. I just like, okay, that's fine. But you're right.
But
I
so
love this.
I
I
think
love this.
we have to determine, is there a winner or are there winners?
I think there is a winner.
I think
I
so
think
too.
our winner was Crowd today. I think our winner is Nick. And I would say not only a deserving winner, but also a surprising outcome. I would say. I don't think anybody's picking Nick to win this all through episodes 1, 2, and 3. I mean, I think Becky Lee was
I
like the
mean,
front runner. Darren was there as well. We've had other standouts.
his edit was there, but it never screamed winner. Like, it seemed like there were like bigger characters. And by the time we got like his backstory, it didn't feel like main character energy.
Mm,
And maybe part of that is that like there were, people with like deeper stories and who were maybe a bigger part of things early on, but I thought they hit it pretty well, for me at least.
mm.
But like at the same time, when I look back, I'm like, yeah, he played well the whole time. Like, it's
Yeah,
not like I wasn't able to see that he was playing, or the connections that he was making.
yeah. Even just like, if I had to guess, yes, I would think Nick can make it to the summit, right? Like, I don't think I'm counting him out at any point. But I think that if we were thinking like who is making the most cutthroat moves, who's doing the wheeling and dealing, there were just other people who were talked about in higher regard socially than Nick and strategically. So it was like very funny to see that, okay, Nick is the one who comes out. I think this is not a complaint at all. This is actually me very much being happy with the edit, because I don't want to know who's going to win 3 episodes in. That takes the suspense out of it. There's only one time they really telegraphed the Nick win for me, and it was in this very episode when Nick's like, I don't think I'm gonna win. I was like, okay, girl, okay.
I had
Sure.
the same thought. I was like,
All right.
when the votes came, it was like what, like 5-4 or something,
Five to
in
four to
favor of
two, I
Pumpkin.
think. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I was thinking like, ooh, this is looking rough. And then they had the confessional where Nick was like, and I knew I had lost. And I was like, oh, so he wins.
He wins. Because there's like 2 votes left, and it's Amy and
Yeah.
Jeannie. And you're like, oh
Yeah.
yeah. The odds are against him. I think Theron's confessional is something to the effect of like these people are thinking with their hearts and not their heads. And then Pumpkins is, people aren't gonna remember how what you did, but they're gonna remember how you treated them. I'm like, yes, Pumpkin, give us a winner quote. And then we get Nick. I just don't think I got it in me to get these last 2 votes. I was like, oh, that goes and squashes my Pumpkin quote, because that is how you went just a little too far in hiding our winner there, because I'm thinking, well, there's no way he's gonna say that, because that takes all the suspense out of it. Now these next 2 votes are definitely going his way. And even without that, I was very surprised. Again, these 2 votes, yeah, if I had to guess last episode, if you had told me these are the 3 people who would win a jury vote, I wouldn't have picked Nick. I think that I would have probably gone with Pumpkin at that point, or Theron. I'd have said if they really respected a strategic game, then they'll probably lead toward Theron. But if their feelings are hurt, they'll probably lead toward Pumpkin, who has done like the least damage to everybody else. But then to see they kind of pick the middle ground of like, no, you were strategic. You cut a few people, but you did it in a respectful way. You played the game and we respect it. And so even people like Amy and Jeannie, who have all right to be, I think, scorched earths at that point with how they interacted with Nick, they gave him the vote. And yeah, kudos to him. I was very surprised, but I think he's a deserving winner. I think that if you have a season 1 winner, you want somebody like this who's not afraid to play the game, but also someone who doesn't suck.
Yeah. And so we get to see like all of the people come back. I do think it was nice to see some of the people from the beginning. It was cool to see Bo. But I will say, when some of them are voting, I'm just kind of
Same. Like, what do you know?
yeah, I'm pretty sure Bo was like, well, based on my first impression of you and the answers you gave here, you seem chill.
Yeah, no, that like Tony's like, yeah, I remember that day, that 14 hours we spent together. It was crazy. I guess I'll vote for you. Yes. Question mark. Shweta as
Yeah.
well. Like, girl, what? No disrespect. I think if you want everybody's vote, that's fine. But some of these people don't know these people. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
just,
like
whatever.
I can't even. I honestly, I don't even remember who most of them voted for. I remember who the people we remember, like the jury, the jury
Mhm.
that would be like on Survivor Big Brother, like the more recent Boots, who had a lot more of a journey with these people. I remember their votes because it's like Becky Lee goes for Taran, and Jeannie and Amy go for Nick, and Jeff goes for Pumpkin. Maybe Jeff was a little bit of a reach back, but like I remember Jeff, and I know why he would vote for Pumpkin. So I think
Yeah.
beyond Jeff is when it starts to get a little shaky.
Yeah, and Jeff was like the first big betrayal, I think, of the season,
Mhm.
right? Because Jeff was the guy. He was the guy. Like, oh, we're gonna let Jeff be in front, but everybody was secretly sharpening their knives to get out Jeff anyway. And so I kind of want to know who Jeff is gonna vote for. But there's even when they get into their jury questioning, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit. There's even moments where they're asking these questions before they vote, and Nick and Theron are even a little offended, like almost kind of like, what do you know? Why are you asking me about this? Like Patty legit being like, I felt betrayed when you picked Dusty over me. Nick was like, girl, what did you want me to do? Pick you over Dusty? Are you crazy? Like, what are you talking about? And so it's moments like that where I'm like, Patty, you don't really have much of a leg to stand on, when it comes to that kind of thing. There are betrayals, and then there's just like strategy that makes sense in the moment because you're climbing a mountain, and if you're the slowest person, it makes sense to vote you off opposed to the fastest person. Like he's not going to put a target on his back for you, Patty. Not like that, not that early in the game, but Patty like having an axe to grind about it really felt like, all right, I kind of forgot that even happened to Patty. You know what I'm saying? Like it had just been so long. So I don't really know how you fix that because the show is not extremely long. 10 episodes is not crazy, but for the jury tonight almost to be just kind of invisible. And then for you to be bringing up like, and here's what Rose thinks. I'm like, oh, there's a Rose in this season. Damn, forgot about her. Like, well, what does
Yep.
she think? There was another person I think they brought up, and I was like, who? But again, it's not because they weren't fun characters while they were there. It's just that I feel like their impact is felt a lot less, like in a jury vote, because we don't really know the interaction that you have with these three specific
Yeah.
people.
It's like I'm pretty sure I know a lot more about what happened than you did.
Yeah, right. Like you was there, and I still could probably tell you more about the end game because I just watched it, and you did not. You know what I'm saying? You missed it. Um, and that's not great. Like I like it.
I'm not sure what the solution is there. Because I do like having them, but like maybe them
Yeah,
having votes is like maybe they don't need votes.
yeah. Like they could talk about it, but maybe like the final
They
seven.
can be there and try to influence the voters if they
Yeah,
have strong opinions, but like yeah, there were a lot of votes, and a lot of them I was just kind of like I don't even know why you voted that way, and I don't even remember who you are.
yeah. And some of it was even kind of like some of it was a little like sus, even with the voting confessionals, with them telling us why they were voting a certain way. Because Bo's like, I'm voting for Nick because he played an honest game, and I was like, Nick did?
How do
Like,
you know? He's
right?
been dead for 2 weeks.
Bo, baby, we murdered you a long time ago. You don't know what you're talking about. No, but so it's like some of those stood out. Like I said, Tony was the one who's like, based on first impression, I'll give it to Nick. Okay, Tony, you met him for a little bit. Okay, fine. If the three of them, you have to draw straws. That's fine. Whatever. But people like Bo being like, you played an honest game. Even Sweta. It's like, okay, Sweta, you was with Theron, but maybe here's what we're missing. Maybe we didn't really get to see the cast make a case for themselves. The final three, I would love to hear them like really give a good speech about the game
Mhm.
moves that they made, right? And
Yeah.
so, and maybe they did, and we just didn't see it. But I think that's the one thing that's different, right? Where we hear people explain their game, and then when they don't get votes, we're sitting at home like, oh, well, you probably would have got that vote if he had owned up to certain things. But here it kind of felt like you're in front of the firing squad. You have to defend yourself, and then these people are going to vote however they're going to vote. And that's slightly different to me. So maybe that's how you tweak it. But it did feel like there were a lot of votes for people who hadn't really spent a lot of time with these people.
Mhm. Yeah, so let's talk about the questioning, because Nick gets some heat. He gets some heat from Becky Lee, certainly. And like the thing is for Becky Lee, like she's bitter. I love that.
Yeah.
Love a bitter juror. I was still kind of expecting her to vote Nick though, because like between Nick, Theron, and Pumpkin, Nick is the only one that was actually justified, like really justified in
Yeah.
flipping the table on her, and also was like the one that did it, like the one that got her. So
Yeah.
I kind of felt like the gamer in her would be like, listen, you shouldn't have listened to him. Now he's gonna beat your ass.
Right. And I'm
But
stamping off on it. Yeah.
but she goes
um
Theron, which I thought was a strange choice because Theron is probably the person who was like, at least according to what we saw, the least justified in turning on her.
Yeah, but I think Becky Lee and Theron had been locked in since day one. I think that was her person. I think Theron was a lot of people's person. And as much as Becky Lee wants us all to believe, like that's the thing with the Becky Lee argument, even with Pumpkin, it's like, Pumpkin, I trusted you. And I was like, girl, you betrayed her left and right. Like, let's talk about the people you didn't betray. You didn't betray Theron at all. You know what I'm saying? At all. Throughout, y'all were in lockstep. So, even when we see Becky Lee's vote come out to be Theron, it's like, Becky Lee, if you loved Pumpkin so much, then why didn't you vote for her? It's like, well, I'm bitter. Okay, cool. Well, if you're
She
bitter,
betrayed you too.
right? Theron betrayed you. True. I think she just voted for her favorite person, and it was Theron. And if it kind of feels like a little cop out, Becky Lee. Either be bitter or don't. But it just feels like oh, okay. Yeah. At the end of the day, I just went with who I like the most, and that's fine. You can vote however you want.
She was also like, "This is my chance to have a final impact on the game."
She's like, you know what I'm gonna try to do? Make it end in a tie.
Least amount of
Yeah.
votes.
Yeah. Like I'm gonna throw my vote that way. People will really feel it. Yeah, she was just interesting to see because I'm with you. I want scorched earth. Every time I get a juror, I want them to come in and they're mad, but I want them to be able to justify their voting. And Becky Lee, she had me in the first half when it comes out. Like Nick is like talking to Jeannie, and he's like, Jeannie, I'm sorry, blah blah. He's crying. Like, okay, you got through that one. And then he starts doing his like, I know a little bit about each of y'all. I'm like, tell us all this time. Let me go down the jury. I was like, somebody needs to shut this down. And my girl Becky Lee was like, so what if you know everything about everybody? It don't matter. I was like, yes, Becky Lee. And then Nick just got her together. He's like, all right, Becky, let's talk. Like, let's get to the brass tacks. You was coming for me. You been lying to everybody. I was like, oof, Becky Lee, you had all week to prepare for this. You knew this was coming.
Yeah, so I do think probably Becky Lee just votes for Theron because he's probably the person she likes the most. But I do want to say that like you saw both Pumpkin and Nick attempt something, which is to justify their betrayal, right?
Yeah.
Nick says, you were turning on me. I was going to the end with you. I had to turn on you. Pumpkin says, you said my name. Becky Lee says, no, I didn't. Which
she's like, well, girl, you've been throwing it out.
Pumpkin,
you never took it off the
comes
table.
back with like a better reason, but like it's definitely not like a great look to have believed a lie.
Yeah.
But then Pumpkin comes in with like, well, but you weren't exactly the best ally. You took out Jeff, you took out whatever, and like that is a better reason. But what I have noticed in Big Brother and other shows is that trying to justify your betrayal very rarely works. Justify in the sense of like, it was your fault that I betrayed you.
I had no choice. Yeah.
Never works. Even if it's totally fair, like in kind of both of their instances. But certainly, when Nick is, you were actively coming for me. Of course I had to betray you. It still doesn't work because it's putting the blame on that person. People don't like blame. They don't like having blame. It just makes them feel worse about you. And she maybe just votes for Theron regardless. But Theron just kind of doesn't say a word. No. And Nick's justification to Amy and to Jeannie is just, I'm sorry. Yeah. I feel terrible. And that's much better than like, what do you want me to do? I had to do it. You did it first. And
Yeah.
so I think like the lesson there is that like just apologize. Just
Yeah.
I'm sorry is the best course of action if you're trying to win their vote back.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you can tell Becky Lee, I'm sorry, because Becky Lee doesn't come in with a real question. She says, you know, the thing that hurt me the most in this game is that you betrayed me, Pumpkin, and I would have never betrayed you. That's not an accusation of anything. Like, she's just telling you like how she felt in that moment, right? She's not asking you to explain yourself. You know, she's just telling you like, hey, that sucked. And Pumpkin response should be like, damn, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. You know, like I played the game the best I can. But then the first chance you get, you need to remind people that Becky Lee was coming for you. You know, it doesn't have to be to Becky Lee, but when you get ready to explain your game to the next person, you're like, listen, I was aligned with Becky Lee, but she just kept going behind my back and doing stuff. So I didn't think I could go with her to the end. You know, explain it over there, you know, but give her her moment to feel hurt. You know, you can still get the
Mhm.
sentence out. It doesn't have to be like to squash whatever this person's argument is or their feelings or to discount their feelings. It's like, no, I understand that your feelings are hurt. And I think Nick probably did a better job in doing that as well, right? Like, Jeannie, I tried to justify this because I said there I had to do this for Theron, but like, make no mistake, I still lose sleep over that. You know what I'm saying? Like I will never not feel like he said it'll haunt me the rest of my life that I did that. That's some type of stuff
Mhm.
that you say, you
Yep.
know, where you're like, ooh,
That's what you
yeah,
say.
okay.
That's what they want to
Yeah,
hear. That gives them the
yeah.
little piece of like, yes,
At the very
I will
least,
live
I'm
rent
going to
free in your
sleep.
brain for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Count your $1,000,000 while I'm leaning over your shoulder, laughing in your face. You know, like you'll rue the day. You know, so I think you're right. But I did love that like Becky Lee came out swinging, and like Nick was not having it. He was just like, "Nah, Becky Lee, you don't get to play this like wildly entertaining and also impressive game that we got from Becky Lee. But then you don't also get to come back and like try to have the high like moral ground on everybody." I love Dennis too. Dennis coming and being like, Becky Lee, chill. It was kind of funny because he's like,
I
nah,
can't remember who Dennis voted for.
Pumpkin. He was like, I want to vote for the
Okay,
person
yeah.
who's most like me. It was someone honorable. And I was like,
I remember I thought that I was thinking I came in like, oh, I have to talk about Dennis voting for Pumpkin, and I was like, wait, no, there's no way he voted for
there's
Pumpkin.
no way he voted for Pumpkin. Yeah, he
Really,
said
Dennis?
he wanted to vote for the person. He said, we might be frenemies, but I think we're very similar. And I was like, okay, you know, that's cool. I was like, is there any bitter feelings between like Dennis and maybe Becky Lee and Nick because they outplayed him? I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't
This
expecting that.
this
There were a few
struck me
votes
as
that I was
like,
kind of surprised about.
yeah, this struck me as like the like, oh, I don't love these other two people. I'm gonna convince myself that this person who I like more played a better game somehow. Like,
Yeah. Or I think this person's about to win. Let me vote with them. You know, like let me
maybe.
vote with the group. Because I was convinced when she got the Dennis vote, I was like, oh, there's no way she's gonna lose. Because like, why would she get the Dennis vote? And then I'm thinking, and obviously the Amy and Jeannie votes are locked up. But we will see that they're not necessarily locked up. Also, Dusty's vote was very curious to me. He voted for Nick. Wasn't I was very surprised.
Yeah, it's again, it's hard to say. I think there were again just too many votes for them to like focus too much on why each person voted that way. But I would have loved to have heard more from Dusty about like why. I mean, certainly he's not voting Theron. You
No,
knew
I
that.
know. What
Um,
Theron is not a leader. Are you crazy? You can't you did something that made me question your morals, Theron, and that's because you're not a leader.
but honestly, like I don't know. I feel like the theory for me, because wasn't he working with Pumpkin for a decent amount of the game?
Dusty and Pumpkin were in lockstep. That was her last
Yeah.
blind side, was them getting rid of Dusty. She was not ready for that.
So like I wonder if he was impacted by Pumpkin's betrayal of Becky Lee. That like maybe he felt like,
Oh,
oh, Pumpkin was not like as loyal, and Nick is the one that got her to turn, because he talked about Nick being a good game player.
yeah.
And so I feel like he might have respected. I think Dusty was more of a player than other people assumed. Maybe they did assume he was, but like I think that Dusty was like not super involved in strategic stuff because he felt like his position socially and physically was good enough that if everyone just plays straight, I'll win.
Yeah.
And so he was trying to get everyone to play more honorably, right? And
Mhm.
then it didn't work out for him. But yeah, I'd love to hear more from him. He seemed impressed by Nick's game, and the thing that would impress me if I were sitting there is Pumpkin saying, "I Becky Lee, you were coming for me," and Becky Lee in my ear saying, "I absolutely did not." Nick tricked her into thinking that, and me being like,
Right.
"Wow, kudos to Nick then."
I got it. Kudos to Nick. Yeah, and also Dusty really held Theron accountable for that L, and I think that's something we haven't talked about enough. Is that Theron was the one who slit Dusty's throat, but he points out everybody was willing to split your throat except for Pumpkin. Like it was time. We had been talking about it. They were like, "That's Dusty." Legit said, "I think that's a lie. I think you're lying." And there was like, "You think I'm lying on everybody?" He's like, "Yes, absolutely." I said, "Dusty, wake up. You were next, baby. The only person who was going to say you were Pumpkin." I was like, maybe that's where Pumpkin should have jumped in and been like, "No, no, they were all coming for you. It was just me." Because it's like, he held Theron accountable for something that Becky Lee would have absolutely done. Nick would have absolutely done. They had all conspired against him. But since they weren't the ones who
Oh
slit his
yeah.
throat, he's like, "F you, Theron. You're the one who
Well,
I'm
you know
holding
what?
accountable."
They made a point of, I forgot about this in Dusty's boot episode. They made a point of showing us that Nick and Dusty had like a deal, right? Like they had a thing going,
Mhm.
and that Nick was able to take Dusty out via Theron without getting any blood on his hands, and they really like made an emphasis on that.
Nick said it. Yeah. He was like, "I don't have to be the one
Mhm.
to get Dusty out,"
And at
which
the
is
time, I was like, "Who
wild.
cares?"
Right. You were like, "And?" But if you're able to put this on Theron and make it convincing, it's crazy because like even Becky Lee didn't chime in and be like, "No, we really were." Like they really just left Dusty to be like, he looked at Theron like I think I felt like he was being gaslit. Like Theron's like, "No, they were coming for you," and Dusty's like, "No, I don't perceive that." He's like, "But they were. They're sitting right here. They were coming for you." "Nope. I think you're lying." "That's it? You just think I'm lying. Like I'm telling you the truth." And he's like, "No, I'm sorry. Can't trust you. You lied to me before. Sorry. It's out of my hands. It's above me now." Like Dusty, I don't know what game Dusty was playing, but I like it. I like it a lot.
Let's talk a little bit about Jeannie and Amy, because again, I feel like for the most part, this is probably just relationship based, right? Like they liked Nick the most. They spent the most time with Nick. He did a lot for them. That's their explanation. But I do want to like just, it's something I thought about,
Mhm.
that like if you're Jeannie, if you are Amy, these are both people that had the perception of being kind of like dragged along on the journey
Mhm.
to some degree. Jeannie is the oldest, Amy was the slowest for a long time. And I think that like there's something that can do to you psychologically that just makes you feel more grateful just for having been there, because you feel like, and maybe you don't completely feel, and I don't want to put words or thoughts into their minds, but like I think there's something maybe subconscious where like if you are Dusty or Becky Lee and you're really great physically and you feel like you are good at this, you deserve your spot at the summit, versus people like Jeannie or Amy who are like, I'm fighting tooth and nail to be here every
Mhm.
single day. People don't think I deserve to be here. I'm constantly slowing the group down, or I'm constantly like trying to prove my worth. And the different reactions that you might have to being eliminated based on those perceptions of yourself. And this idea that like, if Nick betrays Jeannie or Amy, who felt like, you know what, Nick really stuck by me at my lowest all hike long, all climb long, and then at the end was like, sorry, I've done so much for you, but it's time, versus like, hey, we've been in this together, or like I've led you and you're gonna slit my throat at the end. Like I feel like there's a different mentality there, and more bitterness that might come from somebody who felt like that it was theirs versus somebody who felt like, I was just trying to survive. And that's interesting to me. I mean, I think that exists in all reality shows, not just the Summit, but the Summit makes it so much more clear that like there are people out in front and there are people lagging behind. And so, like I said, they're probably just voting for Nick regardless. This might not have anything to do with it, but it's just some little bit of impact that social structures have on these kinds of things that I think is interesting.
Yeah, and it's like I can forgive you for betraying me because you carried me for so long. It's like
Yeah.
I have burdened you essentially, right? Let's say I've added another like 15 minutes onto every walk that you've ever done, and you've made a point of going back and never leaving me behind. Now you're faced with almost an impossible decision, and you could carry me some more, or I could say, okay, you've done as much as you could humanly do without me like literally being on your back. So it's like, all right, I can let you slide because you've done so much prior to that. It's less about making promises to other people where you're telling you, I always got you. I'll never say your name. I'll never say your name, because you don't have to prove that, right? You only prove that bond when it's time to vote. But for Nick, he's shown that he's bonded with Amy and Jeannie throughout because he never left them behind. Like even when they partner up, Amy's like, I'm partnering with Nick. He's afraid of heights. I'm claustrophobic. We're gonna help each other through this. They're coaching each other through every challenge. In a way that I don't think Pumpkin is necessarily doing, in a way that I don't think Taran is necessarily doing all the time. And a lot of times, people are coaching Taran, if anything. But I think that as far as Nick goes, it was a genuine relationship that he had with them, and they just ran out of numbers. I mean, at some point, people have to go. There's only so many votes you can affect, and you can't blame him. It's like, do I want to fault this person for not throwing their game away from me? It happens. We've seen that happen in juries a lot of times where people are like, you beat me. I'm not voting for you. And that's okay. That's completely valid. But I think it's also valid to say, all right, this person has done me a solid time after time after time. I would not have made it here without the emotional support that I got from this gentleman. I need to give him some credit for doing that. And I think that the votes make sense if you outline them like that. Again, I was shocked because, from the gameplay standpoint, we're like, if y'all are scorched shirts, you got to be looking at Nick and be like, he lied to me. Like, I want to vote. I want to go with somebody who played more like me, more like Pumpkin, more like, less strategic, less cutthroat. But Jeannie wasn't not strategic. You know what I'm saying? She definitely was very much in those votes. Like, she was lockstep with Nick, and they turned on both. She turned on Amy. She turned on Rose. Jeannie was making the same moves Nick was making. So why punish him for something that you would have very well done? You just wouldn't have done it to Nick. And so I think that he deserved the votes. I think he's a good winner for the show because I think that it shows that you don't have to be the Jeff or the Dusty to win, but you also have to care for the other people that you're with because it's transparent if you don't. And I think for people like Becky Lee and Taran, even, it came off like this is very transactional. This is very much like I'm keeping you in the game until I can do other stuff with you. Whereas I think you can genuinely feel that Nick wanted to go to the end with Jeannie. He wanted to go to the end with Taran too. And there's only so many people he could go to the end with, and he just ran out of space. But somebody had to go, and he proved his loyalty to Jeannie throughout. So kudos to him, man. Summer season 1. I think an unlikely winner just based off the edit, but I think that's good. I think that's good for TV.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked the finale. And it wasn't always the most thrilling all the way through, but it had some moments, and genuinely I think that like if they are interested in tweaking the show into a season 2, I'd be willing to check it out for sure. I think there is so much promise in the format. I think that there even in this season there were some highs that were like very fun. So I'd be very curious to see what they're capable of in a season 2.
Yeah, especially now that they have our small areas of growth, critiques that we've thrown out, here and there, just blessings and just small blessings that we sprinkled amongst the podcast that they can come back and listen to and say, okay, they're crazy for thinking that's going to work, but some of this stuff in here can be tweaked and we can do this and it can be sexy. They can make the show sexy. And I would like that. I would love that. I think Manu talked about not being the star of the show. The star is very much the cast, and that is true. But you could use Manu a little bit more too. Get him out there chopping the ropes and stuff like that. Have him out there. The Mountains Keeper is like the menacing overlord that we never see, but Manu is like his hand, and he's out here like wielding all the power with an iron fist. You could use him more. I think there's a lot that the show can do. And for season 2, I'd love to be back talking about it with you, Taran.
Yeah. Listen, do we even need the Mountains Keeper? Can it just be Manu? You know what I mean?
It could just be Manu. He's terrifying. I love him. I love you, Manu, but you're terrifying.
I love that. I felt like Manu was like, I felt like, again, I don't want to put words in his mouth. It felt like he was saying like, he kind of wishes he could be nicer. Like,
yeah, he was so happy for them.
For me, but like, I love these people.
He was like, in a way, being like, it's my voice. It's just how it sounds. Like, I just sound menacing. My sister told me, like, not like, bro, you don't have to sound like this. It's like, this is just how I sound. No, he loved them. He was so happy to see them at this. Like, he was beaming. And he honestly kind of looked upset when they were questioning each other. Like, he wanted to step in and be like, all right, guys, not too much. Be nicer. Be nicer to Taran, okay? But yeah, and I don't think we gave Taran his due. He played an aggressive game, baby. I think that, Taran, he showed up and showed out. I don't think he got the votes, but it's a dangerous game to play. You got to balance the social and strategic parts, and everybody can't win. So shout out to him. I think that all 3 of the final 3 were great. I think that Manu is great. I think you could bring back some of these people for All-Stars. I'm just saying. I'd love to see maybe Becky, Lee, and Taran and Dennis, the big 3, come back for a round 2, or maybe even Jeannie come back with like an axe to grind and a chip on her shoulder. Like, this time I'm gonna make it to the summit or else.
Imagine it's like the challenge and like somebody comes back like all beefed up, like, I've been training. Like,
yeah, steroids. I'm sorry. No, that's please. It's like the return of Bo, and he's like jacked. Love to see.
They're not killing me this time.
The next time they chop the rope, Bo just hangs from it and climbs up on his own. He's like, nah, I'm a new Bo, baby. No worries. Yeah.
You should be able to survive a murder attempt. That would be great.
If they're like, the helicopter's leaving Eugenie, and she's like, that's fine, I'll hike. And then like, they get to the summit and like 15 yards back, she's running up the mountain. I'm coming. Give her something. But look, seeds of greatness, I think, here in the summit. It's been a fun first season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, Chappell, any final thoughts on the summit?
Nah, just thank you all for listening to us and the comments. I've been looking now. I wasn't watching the comments earlier in the season because I didn't want y'all to spoil the show for me, and y'all were hell bent on it apparently. Just in the comments like, oh, the Australian version, this is what happened. Thanks. But we wanted to find out with the show. We did it this way. Next time we'll do it your way. I'll check the comments or something like that. But I've enjoyed the people like giving the feedback. I even met some people in Houston at the RHAP live event that were asking questions about the summit specifically. People talking about how much they love seeing Taran and Manu talking without me, blah, blah, blah. But fun times. I want to thank everybody for listening and for supporting us here on Reno Reality TV.
Yes. Thank you guys for being here all along the way here with this. We have reached the summit of this podcast, and very fun to have a show to recap with Chappell. I'm gonna miss you.
Yeah, Manu. We don't talk enough. Yeah, okay, you're gonna miss. So Manu misses me, but who misses me more? Do you think you miss me more or Manu? Because we talk all the time now. This is a weekly thing. Now what are we gonna do?
Yeah, I don't know. We got to figure something out.
You want to do another podcast? Let's talk about it. I heard about this show called The Summit, but there's an Australian version. I think we got to go cover all of it. The Summit Cinematic Universe is all of ours. We'll just go do all of them. I think we got it.
All right. Yeah.
Taran, your soundboard is not working.
It's still not working.
I was like processing. Oh, there's no sound.
Figures.
That shows you the kind of time we've been having here.
Listen, I was worried. I wanted to play a soundbite for Manu, but I was worried it wouldn't work, and so I decided not to.
No, it's fine. Yeah. We'll edit that out. It's all good.
Hold on. Okay. Now? No.
It's faint.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I know why it's faint. Hold on. Ready? We're gonna make this happen.
Okay.
On the final podcast, we're gonna make it happen.
Okay. But then again, no.
That was loud.
No, no, it was actually good. It was decent. Yeah. No, we're not doing the summit. We're not doing it. We'll be back for Summit Season 2, but we're not going to Australian Summit or other summits. I think this is the summit home that we know, but we'll find something else there to talk about, I'm sure.
We will. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. If you want more reality TV coverage, make sure you're subscribed to the We Know Reality TV feed here at RHAP. We also do scripted show coverage. I have a podcast where I talk about all the new shows and movies coming out, what you should be checking out, what you should know about what's happening. It's called The Tastemakers over at We Know Scripted TV. And I also have a Twitch channel where I'm hanging out, playing games, and just chatting, watching shows. I watch Survivor Live, and when Big Brother's on, I watch that, and all kinds of fun stuff like that. So check me out over there on Twitch. Chappell, what do you got going on?
I'm on We Know Scripted TV as well. Sasha and I are talking about The Sex Lives of College Girls, Season 3. So check that out. And then check me out on my own podcast, Recap Kickback, on recapkickback.com and on youtube.com/@recapkickback for all the content that I'm releasing with Mari and my slew of other guests, including Gia and Abbott Elementary and all other stuff. So all social media platforms too, at Recap Kickback, wherever you want to find me, even on Blue Sky. So check me out.
All right. Well, thank you all one more time for hanging out with us on the summit. And we will see all of you next time.